Georgina joining us, naturopath specialising in perimenopause and menopause. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. All right, so if you could just start off by introducing yourself to the listener. Firstly, I understand you're from Aspects of Healing. We'll start there.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm one of the practitioners at Aspects of Healing in Lee Street in the city.
Yep, and so you were telling me that you've got remedial massage there, Reiki, an acupuncturist there, Ayurveda, and yourself specialising in this also. So anything else we missed? Anything else you do there?
We've got Reiki. Did we mention
Yeah,
Reiki?
we mentioned that.
Mentioned that, yeah.
What about reflexology for the feet?
Not currently,
No.
but hoping in the future, yes, again.
I only say that because I've come across a couple of people saying that it's the best thing ever, getting your feet massaged, and it's always good to find a good specialist in someone's area. So
Absolutely.
I thought I'd mention that. And you're in Lee Street, Adelaide.
That's right, yes.
Right. Okay, so today we're just going to have a brief chat about what people can do if they're, at that point in their life experiencing coming close to perimenopause and menopause. I know half the population will go through this or have gone through this in their life, so I thought, why not have a little chat about it? So, and we were saying that, we know what menopause is, but perimenopause, is that like a new term? I mean, it's always been around, but has it sort of just popped up the past sort of decade that we're giving more attention to it?
It's a good question, Bianca. I think that it's something that we're just talking about a lot more. So I think there's greater awareness around the changes that can happen to a woman's body as she comes to that point in her life.
Yes.
And we're talking about a period of time that can transpire over 10 years.
What, perimenopause lasts that long?
It can do for some women.
Really?
Yeah, it's our bodies start changing in a reproductive sense from the time we hit about 40. And so then really from the time 40 through to about 50 or the early 50s, our body's undergoing a series of hormonal changes.
And we're always aware of them, or they're happening, women that perhaps feel their body temperature's changing or they're not sleeping at night. Are we always going to know it's happening? We're getting signs from our body, or can some people go through it and not even know they're going through it?
Yeah, it's different for every woman, and it can be different from one culture to another as well. So,
interesting, yes.
Yeah, so Western women do tend to typically experience more menopausal symptoms. And, again, not every woman goes through it or the obvious symptoms. Some women couldn't really quite recall the transition of menopause, while others can feel completely debilitated by it.
So that's interesting when you mention culture, because we have heard that, different diets and different regions of the world or different climate, people that live in a colder climate or eat different food, they respond differently to the things that, we all go through.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, what have you sort of found out about that with regards to this topic?
Yeah, so my understanding is that Asian women, for example, they might complain more of like stiffness or tightness around the neck and the shoulder region, so more musculoskeletal type presentations, whereas we tend to get things like the hot flushes and the night sweats, for example, and that's quite a common symptom for a lot of women, and sleep issues as well. So again, I do wonder if the diet is the connection there. I'm happy to talk a bit more about soy, for example, as part of our conversation. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up,
Yeah.
because we do hear, and I don't know what's true, because some people say one thing and other people say another, just like with anything we discuss. Of course, that's natural. There's always different schools of thought, different research out there, different papers, different people experience different things. But, we often hear that the human body, in the Western world isn't really, we're not designed to eat soy and tofu. We can't digest it as well as people who perhaps have grown up on it.
That's true. A lot of us don't have the right enzymes to be able to process it very well. So that's why a lot of people might struggle when they do eat soy-based products. But from a menopausal perspective, it's very high in a compound that we call phytoestrogens. That's a really important thing to be mindful of when you're going through menopause.
What, to eat more tofu?
To consume more phytoestrogens in your diet.
Really? So we want to increase estrogen in our body?
Yeah, well, phytoestrogens are a very interesting compound in food because they can actually regulate the estrogen level as your body needs. So it can upregulate estrogen or it can downregulate it. So obviously, depending on where we're up to in our menopausal journey or our perimenopausal journey, our body will have different needs for estrogen levels at different times throughout that transition.
Okay.
So it's usually when you get to the like menopause proper, where you stop menstruating basically, that's when you're experiencing that significant estrogen decline, and that's where a phytoestrogen food would help to upregulate estrogen in the body. And the opposite would be true, you know, if you were a woman who had excess estrogen, it can help to balance out some of the excess estrogen too.
That's interesting that it does that.
Because
we do hear people saying as well around this age, you know, more women are being diagnosed, unfortunately, with cancer, and specifically breast cancers, which, and you hear that some estrogen-based breast cancers. So, but then you say if it can bring it up and down, if you know the estrogen can make it sort of go the either way.
The important thing to remember with estrogen is there are different forms of estrogens, and we often encounter what we call xenoestrogens, which are also known as dirty estrogens, and we encounter those through our environment, so through conventional personal care products, for example.
With chemicals, you mean?
Yeah, chemicals. So where you're getting chemicals in products, and it can be personal care products or cleaning products and things like that, that's where the estrogen can run havoc in the body. It's the kind of estrogen that multiplies and you know, it grows very quickly, and that those sorts of estrogens can often lead to the growth that you're talking about, for example. Whereas phytoestrogens are more natural, a natural form of estrogen. So they're going to have more of a regulating effect in the body. So it's more of a beneficial effect.
And can that affect men as well? The estrogen from chemicals affect men?
Yeah, absolutely. The chemicals can throw out male reproductive hormones as well.
So what do they have to do? What they stay away from what, let's say, to not experience that?
Well, a lot of conventional products, if they're not labelled as all natural products, then it's worth always reading the labels to see if you can't understand the ingredients in the product that you're putting on your skin, you probably shouldn't be putting it on your skin. If it's mostly numbers, it's likely to have quite a lot of like a toxic cocktail of chemicals in it.
Yeah.
Lots of numbers. So, you know, I like to use personally a lot of natural products, and I always read the label, and I think less is more with labelling. So it's just something to be mindful of. You always have a choice about what you put into your body or on your body, what you clean your house with, for example. And those things, those little choices that you make can actually have a very profound effect on your hormones and your health and well-being.
So what are some things, while we're on the topic, just briefly, can we do, let's say, I've heard people can clean their, you know, bathroom sink, for example, with a lemon, like half a lemon, you've squeezed out the lemon juice on your salad. Don't discard that half lemon, go to your basin in the bathroom and really scrub it down, and apparently it sparkles, something so simple as that, and it kills the bugs.
Yeah.
Bacteria, eats the bacteria away, the acid.
We're talking about really simple products that are really economical to buy as well. So we're talking about things like bicarb soda, white vinegar, you know, a little bit of tea tree oil.
To do, what can we do with those
cleaning?
Things?
Like
all cleaning.
You can make your own sort of multi-purpose sprays to, you know, spray on kitchen bench tops and bathroom surfaces. And, you know, it's a much healthier way of going than the chemical-laden products that we have in our supermarkets often.
So what would that, in the spray bottle, would be water and vinegar, or water, vinegar, bicarb?
Yeah, I normally put water, vinegar and bicarb together with a little bit of tea tree oil, the tea tree for the disinfectant purposes. But does that sort of store for like 2 weeks, or do you just do a little bit for those few days? Like, does it lose its strength if it just sits there for 3 weeks? Like the vinegar and that, does it lose its potency? No, not to my knowledge. It's fine to sit there for a while.
Okay, well that's good.
Yeah.
Excellent. What about the toilet? You know, there's a lot of bugs there. Is that more metho? Is that a more metho thing, or we can still do the vinegar on the toilet?
Look, I think metho is quite good to use on surfaces as well.
It's stronger.
Yeah, and it depends on the toilet, I guess.
Exactly. That's it. Well, it's good to know that there are things we can do. Yeah. Because there's a lot of toxins in our home environment that we just think is normal. You know, get out the. I don't want to name any names and discredit any brands or anything like that. But we all know them. I'll get out the this and that to clean. We've used it since we were kids. Yeah. But that might not be the best thing.
A very good rule of thumb is when you do read the labels on things, if you see perfume or parfum or fragrance, then really question what they've put in there to create the nice, pretty smells, because often it's not so nice on the body.
That's true. So we think fragrance is just a pretty rose smell, and it's not dangerous, but what's that, like you said, what's in it to make it that?
That's right. And often the manufacturers don't need to actually list all of the chemicals that they put into those things. So there's labelling loopholes around the chemicals.
Exactly. So they just put fragrance, and that covers 18
it could be
chemicals.
Absolutely. Whereas if you buy a product that's got pure essential oil in it, for example, then you know you're actually getting something that's natural and safe.
And I think it's important to know all that for our hair products too, things that like shampoo and conditioner and creams and deodorants that go on our skin and get absorbed. That's really important. Like, for example, deodorant. What's a good deodorant that works? Some don't work.
I quite like the cream-based natural deodorants that you buy, where you just put like a little pea-size amount and just rub it on your armpit. I find they're a bit longer lasting. And the key thing is you want an aluminium-free deodorant. And, you know, for a lot of people, the alcohol that goes into deodorants can be quite irritating on the skin. So I find personally the cream-based deodorants are much gentler and nourishing on the skin.
Is that those homemade ones we see in health stores, and you look and it's got bicarb in it and something else?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you can get versions without the bicarb soda, because again, some people do find the bicarb soda a little bit irritating on the skin. It's a bit abrasive.
But it has to have no aluminium in the bicarb, because I've got bicarb in my...
Yeah, no, that's right. No
and
aluminium.
It's got aluminium in it.
So if you're looking to buy a good quality deodorant, no aluminium is best. Yeah,
exactly. What does it do, aluminium?
Just heavy metals, like they have a range of different effects in the body. They can affect our nervous system quite profoundly, for example. So, yeah, it's just the other thing to watch out for, being women as we're approaching menopause too, is fluoride in toothpaste, because fluoride again, and again, you know, it depends on who you talk to. I know a lot of dentists out there would recommend fluoride for the strength of our teeth. But the fact is that fluoride also competes with iodine, and our thyroid gland needs iodine to produce its hormones, which regulate our metabolism and our body temperature and things like that. And so often when we're coming into our perimenopausal phase and menopause, often our thyroids are a little bit out of kilter as well.
Right. It's important to look after the thyroid, isn't it? Especially as we get older, it regulates so much.
It does, yeah.
So what about, anything else we want to cover with perimenopause before we move into menopause?
I guess I'd just like to say that perimenopause, if I was asked to describe it, I would describe it as an emotional, it can be an emotional roller coaster, but it's a hormonal roller coaster. We have peaks and troughs, so at times in perimenopause we might have estrogen excess, and then at other times we'll have estrogen decline. And so the effects on the body can be quite varied based on that. And it's not just estrogen, but progesterone is changing, testosterone changes in women. We do have little fluctuations in that hormone too.
What goes up or down?
Well, it can increase at certain times in the menopausal transition, and it can often contribute to things like hair in unsightly places. You know how some women might get like the hairs on the chins and things like that. Yeah. So it's perimenopause is just, you know, you sort of don't know what you're going to get necessarily.
Everyone's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, look, I have heard some people say that after they've, well, actually, okay, first I should ask another question before we get to that one, but I have heard some people say it lasts forever, menopause, it never stops, and others say it does have an end point. Is that again another answer it's different for everyone, or is there a definitive answer to that?
It will end at some point. Yeah, it should end. So really the lead up period to menopause is the perimenopause, and that's sort of the longer period of time. Then technically menopause has hit when you haven't had a period for 12 months. And then after that it's post-menopause, and usually that gets easier for women. Once they're in that post-menopausal phase, I should say, it should get easier. And if they're still getting lots of different things going on, then you have to question what else is going on in the body. There's often a lot of underlying causes that contribute to the physical signs and symptoms that we experience.
What about the sleeping? How can people get better sleep during this time? I understand that's hard for people who,
Yeah.
for everyone these days.
Yeah, well, a big thing for sleep is, there's so many things that can impact our sleep, and we live in such a technology-focused world these days. A lot of people are sleeping with mobile phones in their rooms and using them as their alarm clocks, for example. But they really irritate the nervous system. The electromagnetic radiation that these devices are emitting, are not good for our nervous system. So if we're wanting to wind down and relax, that's not conducive to good quality wind down or sleep. But of course, the hormonal factor comes into play as well. So typically when I'm supporting women with sleep, I would be looking at a mix of lifestyle interventions. So things like looking at sleep hygiene, what can they take out of their bedroom to help improve sleep? What can they be drinking of an evening, or what wind down practices can they incorporate as part of their evening routine to promote better quality sleep? So they can be really simple things. A lot of people perhaps don't allow themselves that period of time after dinner and after working to actually just wind down.
That's an important part, isn't it?
It is an important
stress
part.
management.
The stress management is so important, because as long as we're keeping our bodies in that stress mode, the adrenal hormones are being pumped out, and that has an impact on lots of other hormones too. They all feed back into one another. So taking a warm bath, for example, or having a nice sleepy tea before you go to bed, all of those things are good. You can integrate some meditation as well, some mindfulness meditation when you're lying in bed to help your body to relax a bit more, to switch the mind off. A lot of us have the busy minds that never seem to switch off, but meditation is a good one for that.
So what sort of meditation do you recommend?
Well,
and what's something like a little mantra you can say, or breathing, you're focusing on breathing, what would you say?
In terms of breath, a really good thing to remember is to breathe deeply. So you want to breathe not just shallow breathing, but deep breathing. You want to breathe in, say for maybe 2 seconds, hold your breath for a second, then breathe out over 5 seconds. So you want always your exhale to be longer than your inhale.
Why is that?
Because that actually supports the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest part of our nervous system. So if we're wanting to bring ourselves down from our stress and from our worry, if we're wanting to prep our bodies for good quality sleep and rejuvenation, we want to support the parasympathetic nervous system. So always remember a longer exhale, deep breathing and a longer exhale.
That's right, and the holding it for 1 second at the top.
It's just good to sort of pause, just to switch your mind into what you're doing next with your breath. Just to bring the mindfulness to your breath.
Excellent. All right. Okay. Well, actually, you did mention that. What did you call it? Calming tea or sleepy tea? Yeah. What are some? I mean, we know that chamomile helps. What are some others, like lemon balm, or what can people drink?
Yep. There's lots of different sort of sleep promoting or calming teas, so chamomile is definitely a good option. I also love passion flower, and sometimes you even find that in supermarkets, chamomile and passion flower together.
Okay. Yep.
Lemon balm, which you mentioned, is also a beautiful one for calming the digestive system as well as the nervous system. But I wouldn't recommend lemon balm if you've got an underactive thyroid, so that's something to be mindful
Is that
of.
right? Why?
It's actually contraindicated. It's not recommended when you have an underactive thyroid. Some people do well on valerian and some people not so much. I find it can be very hit and miss with people. It's quite a warming herb, so if you're already a hot-blooded constitution, I probably would steer clear of the valerian.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's right. A lot of it is trial and error, isn't it? Because like we said earlier, and we've discussed on the program other times, that every body's different. It's not one size fits all, but there's a general, and then we just do our own research and try different things, play around with it a bit.
Absolutely.
With anything health related.
Absolutely. Look, we all have the ability to react to different things, so then that includes natural ingredients. And so, you know, one person might respond beautifully to a particular herb and the other person not so much. And we do have to think about the energetics of the herbs that we're using as well, because we, as individuals, you know, we have a predisposition perhaps to feeling colder or warmer. That's and true. So we have to tailor the herbs to suit as well.
And what are some general things that women can do to help the hot flushes? I know that that's a really common symptom of all of this. So a few little tips and tricks. I know, again, everyone's different, but just a few general things that work.
Yeah. So hot flushes are very interesting because there's a few different things that come into play there. So there's the estrogen decline. There's usually a rise in noradrenaline, which is one of our stress hormones. And then we also have a drop in serotonin. So those three things combined contribute to hot flushes. So in terms of, you know, what you were saying before about stress management, I can't emphasize that enough for women going through perimenopause and menopause. You need to look after your adrenal glands. You need to find some strategies to build resilience to stress. Whatever works for you. Everyone's different in terms of what they respond to and what they love, but it is really important to just bring your body down from that fight or flight mode, that, like, you know how we often push ourselves and push ourselves and we push ourselves. That just pumps out more noradrenaline, and we don't want that in menopause. We want to calm that down. So there's that, and there's of course the phytoestrogen foods, which I mentioned before, which is helpful for modulating the estrogen level in the body. And then serotonin, you know, a lot of people would have heard of serotonin as the feel-good sort of neurotransmitter. It's important for appetite regulation and pain. It reduces our pain sensitivity and it helps us to feel good. And it's a precursor for melatonin, which is of course the sleep hormone. So we all need more serotonin. And so food, you know, food as medicine can be really powerful in giving you the nutrition that you need to make more serotonin. So dark leafy green vegetables are a great source of magnesium, which is very important for serotonin, for example. Then you need some B vitamins. The B vitamins always come in handy. So if you eat animal-based products, you'll get your B vitamins. If you're vegetarian or vegan, then you need to really look at where you're getting your B vitamins from.
Where do they come from if someone's vegan?
Yeah, so for someone who's vegan, mushrooms are a great source, and also nutritional yeast flakes, which can be used in different ways. They're a high source of B vitamins too.
I've heard that nutritional yeast flakes have MSG in it. Is that a myth, or is that true? Have you heard that?
I haven't.
Someone said be careful of it, and that this was a practitioner who you know, had researched it, and but then you might speak to someone else who will say that's not true. Again,
I think it's always good to look at where you're getting your
what
products
brand
from,
it
and
is,
maybe
all that
do your
matters,
research on where it's being sourced from. You know, there's good and bad versions of everything out there, aren't there?
There is. There's so much now, too much choice.
Yeah.
That's why we get confused.
Exactly, yeah. And the other point I would like to share would be for women going through menopause, really look at whether you need to be drinking coffee. For a lot of women, coffee is keeping the body sort of in that stress mode. It's a stimulant, you know, and it's not going to be helpful if you're dealing with frequent hot flushes and night sweats. So I would definitely recommend either swapping out coffee for something else entirely. Maybe, like, I'm personally a fan of roasted dandelion root as an alternative, because it's a bitter herb and it can be quite earthy in its flavour.
Really?
And you can use it in lots of similar ways to coffee.
Really?
Yeah. So it's available from health stores.
Does it go with like milk, like coconut milk or cow's milk?
Yeah,
because you know some herbal teas you can't put milk in. People like that creaminess.
Definitely, you can put milk with roasted dandelion root.
Really?
Yes.
And what other sort of herbal tea can you put?
You wouldn't put anything else with it. If you were sort of using it as an alternative to coffee, you'd make it as you would normally make a coffee for yourself. So some people, you know, like more like a flat white in style, so they might just have a little dash of milk.
Yeah.
Other people might want it more like a latte, so a bit milkier. So you just sort of vary the amount of milk to suit your preference. But there are some other herbal teas that I do recommend for women if they're looking to come off of caffeine, come off coffee. I love to recommend licorice root as a tea. It's, I should point out, it's not suitable for anybody with high blood pressure, but it is an adrenal tonic. So when we're looking to manage our stress and part of that is looking after our adrenals, it's important when we're detoxing from other things that we've developed a reliance upon. As long as we can keep supporting and nurturing our adrenal glands, we're better equipped to just feel more resilient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our body's a machine, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
We do all the right things.
Yes.
What about forgetfulness? Is that something that happens?
Yeah, look, I speak to so many women who talk about brain fog. Literally, it's like some women describe it as kind of like a grey blanket or a grey fog that just descends upon them, and they just can't think straight. They can't verbalise things, they can't think clearly, they can't remember things. And a big part of that often, I would always think to be looking at the thyroid gland in that situation. And you know, we were talking before about how the thyroid controls so many different things. A common symptom of an underactive thyroid can be brain fog, as well as fatigue. That's another big one for women. So when I support a woman with menopause, I'm looking holistically across a number of different endocrine glands, or hormonal glands, if you like. And I'm also looking across different body systems, and I would be addressing all of those things as part of the plan, because if you don't, you're not actually addressing it adequately.
Yeah, so we need a one-on-one consult.
Yeah, ideally, yes.
Okay. And what about our weight? The weight thing is a big thing for women. You know, they notice that certain things happen. They've got to go up a size when they're in this time of their life. So how can people or women manage their weight?
Yeah, so again, the weight is a pretty common complaint for a lot of women going through this phase of their life. And it seems to be the weight that sort of sits really centrally. So we're talking about the abdomen, the hips and the thighs. That's where we tend to carry more weight. And it doesn't matter, the old strategies that we used to use are not working anymore for us, you know. So women are still, they might be still trying to push themselves at the gym and cut down on calories and trying all these different things, but it's still not shifting. And that's because of the hormonal thing again. So the thyroid does come into play with metabolism. So it helps to regulate how our bodies process things like the fats that we consume in our diet and the carbohydrates and things like that. And also, you know, we need to be thinking differently about what sort of foods we're consuming and what sort of exercise is perhaps better suited to us at that time of life. Weight is such a complex presentation because there's often a lot of different underlying factors involved with weight. So I don't want to coin it as necessarily a menopausal symptom. It can happen. Women can hold unusual amounts of weight at any time of their life for lots of different reasons.
So the stress and cortisol.
The cortisol, definitely. Yeah, good old cortisol.
We keep on getting back to stress management with a lot of these discussions. With health, the body, mind, spirit is it's managing stress.
Absolutely. There's such a huge mindset shift that can occur for women during this time of their life as well. For a lot of women, you know, they're using it as a time to really reflect on what it is that they want and need and what they're willing to keep doing or not do any longer, as the case may be. Because, you know, women going through this time of their life, they've got families of their own. They might be looking after elderly parents. They might be trying to advance in their careers. They might be running the household and trying to juggle all of those things and often putting themselves last.
That's right, all the pressures.
But that doesn't serve anybody else well at the end of the day, because you have to look after yourself, number one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any, firstly, another thing, how can people contact you?
Yes, so if people want to contact Aspects of Healing, the phone number is 81104300.
And any last tips, anything else we've missed before we wrap it up? I feel like there might be one or two things that we need to squeeze in. I'll hand that to you. Anything else? Any other little tips?
I guess I just want to say that estrogen is produced in lots of different tissues and areas of the body, and so a woman's experience of menopause can vary dramatically from another woman's. So there can be There can be changes to our joints, for example, and our musculoskeletal system.
Right, yeah.
There can be changes to our cardiovascular system. So many different presentations. Women can experience mood swings. Women can experience changes in libido. You know, there's all sorts of things that can occur, and it's because estrogen is found in so many different areas of the body. So it really is important to, as I was sort of saying before with perimenopause, once you sort of hit that, once you're in your 40s, you really should be thinking about, in my opinion, how you can support yourself for a healthier hormonal transition.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. And you know, we need to know for ourselves, for our families, you know, like when you mentioned certain things there, you know, the partner or spouse might be thinking, oh, why is this different or that different, or my partner's reacting differently, and lots of different things that can cause conflict.
Absolutely.
If we don't know what's going on.
And I think that's a big reason why hasn't been discussed widely enough up until now. I feel like there is a shift that is occurring, and I think we're learning to become a bit more comfortable about having these discussions. But for a long time, it was kind of taboo to talk about it, and women would just suffer through this time. They'd be afraid to admit even to a female work colleague that this was going on for them because of fear of what that might mean for them in the workplace, you know. So, but I actually think at the end of the day, it makes good sense to be open, to have the conversations, and bring the men into the conversations as well as the women, because we're all affected by it in various ways.
That's right. Yes. Georgina, thank you so much for coming in. Any last words to our listener?
I just can't emphasize enough. Start preparing now. Equip yourselves. It doesn't have to be a horrible transition by any stretch of the imagination. The power is yours to make that choice and to make that decision early.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.